in the country, and JR was out here earlier. Any JR fans out there? JR, yeah. They are awesome. The morning crew's unbelievable. I just love them. Carmen needs help. She needs to hang out with Dave and Bill at all times. Actually, they just oversee her, I think, because she's great. And when I was first moving from Kansas to Nashville, my first neighbors that I met in Nashville were Henry and Liz. They were 75 years old. And Liz actually grew up with Minnie Pearl off of Hee Haw, you know, the show. So it's kind of like growing up next to Minnie Pearl. And they would have me over to dinner, and they would feed me, and they didn't even know me. They just knew I was from Kansas. And so they knew I was from right out of college, and I came over for dinner every night, and they would be like, they fried stuff over there at their house. They're Southern. I've never met a Southern person before, and Southern people scared me because of the accent. They would fry stuff, and I'd go over to their house and be like, a fried steak for Liz, fried steak for Henry, fried steak for me. But by the time I'd get there, Henry or Liz already had it cut into squares for me, because, you know, probably couldn't have done that myself. And Henry said, did I ever tell you about the first date that I took Liz on? And I said, no. And he said, well, I was 18 years old, and I went to her house, and her dad met me on the front porch and said, son, this is my only daughter. I want to make sure that you walk her to the movies and you walk her home. You promise me that you'll never leave her side. And I loved hearing that story the first time, and then Henry was getting to the age where he'd forget he told it to me the night before. And I heard that story every night for 6 months. So I thought, if I ever write a song for these two, it's going to be called Walking Her Home, because it was their story. And so a few years later, I was still working on the song, and they were in a nursing home, and I went to the nursing home, and it was lunchtime, and I walked in, they knew I was coming, and there was some lasagna for Liz, and lasagna for Henry, and lasagna for me. It was already cut into squares. And I said, I got the song for you, so I played them the first couple verses, and then the first couple choruses, and I stopped, and I said, basically that's all I have. I don't have a whole song. And they thought it was neat, and I hugged them, and I was saying goodbye, and as I was leaving, Henry put his arm out like this, and Liz got in there, and they shuffled on down the hall, like a quarter mile an hour, down to their room. And I just watched them go, and I said, Henry, you might have just finished my song for me. Because I realized when he told her that he was going to walk her home and never leave her side, he wasn't just talking about the movies. And here's what I love about Henry and Liz. When I first met them, kid from Kansas, they didn't know me. They just knew I was living next door. After a couple nights, they said, you know what? You need to call your parents and tell them that if we had a son who was out in the world trying to make it, doing crazy stuff like you're doing right now, we'd want somebody to look after him. So you just call your parents and tell them that Henry and Liz adopted you. And they don't have anything to worry about from here on out, because we're going to take care of you. And this is how Henry and Liz, people I didn't know, just two Christian people living in the white picket fence next door to me, met a kid from Kansas they didn't know. And it's then that I realized that Henry, when he said that he would walk Liz home and never leave her side, he was doing something that I learned from him. And I've waited for that thing so far over there. Come on out. Excuse me while I go down here for a second. I'll be right back. I'm going to do that between every song. I might find some other stuff down there that's kind of fun to mess around. I realized what he was doing was just doing what anybody in his position would do if they were absolutely certain that God was with them. And that's the reason they were able to meet me like this, and that's the reason he was able to walk her home so well without fears, because he knew that God was with him at all times. And so this is a song from my two favorite people in the world, Henry and Liz. Looking back, he sees it all. It was her first date the night it came to call. And her dad said, son, have her home on time. You promise me you'll never leave her side. He took her to a show in town. He was 10 feet off the ground as he was walking her home and holding her hand. Oh, the way she smiled and stole the bright right out of him. Down that old road with the stars. she slept, he held her tight. He slept on me back to that first night. He was walking her home, holding her head. Oh, the way she smiled and stole the breath right out of him. Down that old road with the stars up above, he remembers where he was and that he fell in love. He was walking her home, and he walked her through the best days of her life. 60 years together and he never left her side. A nursing home at 85, and the doctor said it could be her last night. And the nurse said, should we tell him now, or should he wait until morning to find out? When they checked her room that night, he was laying by her side. He was walking her home, holding her hand. Oh, the way she smiled, he said, this is not the end. Just for a while, they were 18. She was still more beautiful to him than anything. He was walking her home. He was walking her home. Looking back, he sees it